Hi everybody, Diana here at Build a Quilt. Welcome into my channel. So today's video is going to be all about making your own little design boards. Now I know we can go out and purchase design boards, and I know there are a lot of patterns out to make design boards like this. We see the ones that we see that we can purchase. I get that. But the design board that I created for myself that I'm sharing with you today is very similar, but I actually use it in two ways. So I'm kind of getting double duty out of it, and it's allowing me to use some different offcuts and things of fabric that I wouldn't have normally used for a design board. Normally a design board is a square of artboard or cardboard. You put your batting or felt on the front, and then you bind the whole thing and you're done. And that's all it does. It is a square with the felt on it so that you can lay your pieces out on it, lay your block out on it, and then you're done. But with this one, you're going to get to do it two different ways. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. This is what I call the pad of my design board. This is the front. This is the back. That's right. I used this beautiful offcut of a Tula Pink fabric from her design line. I think Slow and Steady. I think that was the name of it. And you can see the bunny on there, the hair on there. And I loved it. So that's what I use for this. But when I lay it down on the board, that's right. Wait a minute. I'm not seeing that pretty Tula Pink fabric. No. But when you take it off and you hang it up and you're done with it, you can put this on the outside. That makes a nice little thing on your wall. But when you use it the second way, you'll get to see it. And I'm going to save showing you that second way until we're done making the board itself. Okay, so I'm going to set the pad aside for just a moment. Let's talk about this piece. I've just gone to my local craft store and purchased a piece of artboard. It's about, I don't know, a quarter inch thick, and it's really good and sturdy. Okay, so you're going to need this or the equivalent in cardboard. If you use cardboard, please make sure it's a good sturdy piece of cardboard, not something that's thin that's going to bend on you a lot. So I know we just got a new chair in our living room from IKEA, and when it was delivered, it was in a box. We had to put it together. I didn't know it was coming that way. And the box was super thick. And so I told my husband, do not throw that box away. I need to cut some of it down for new design boards. But this is just a piece of artboard. The other supply you're going to need is some Velcro. I like these little Velcro tabs that glue on, but I'm going to tell you that when you go to sew the pieces on your pad, get ready to lose a needle, because there's enough sticky on them and they're hard enough that you're going to end up wanting to get rid of that needle and use a new one. Now I could have taken a product like Goo Be Gone or something like that and wiped it down and probably reused it, but for that particular needle, it was one I was about to change anyway. So if you're at that stage with a needle and you're about to change it, before you change it, make your design boards and then get rid of it, and you'll get some extra use out of it. And then you're going to need, now today I am making showing you a 12 by 12 board. So a 10 by 10 on down size piece will lay out on here nicely with a little bit of space between all your different segment pieces. I also make for myself a 20 by 20 design board, because here at Build a Quilt we do a lot of blocks bigger than 12 by 12 as wall hangings, as table mats, or as just larger blocks that we use to make quick and easy quilts, like a 15 by 15, an 18 by 18, a 16 by 16, a 20 by 20. So if I have anything that I'm making that's bigger than that, I usually split them up maybe amongst two boards. But 12 by 12 and 20 by 20. You are more than welcome to make whatever size you want. Maybe you make a lot of mini quilts, and here at Build a Quilt, one of our newest combo set is our mini segment set. It's the same as our regular size set, but everything is 1, 1.5, and 2 inches. So you can make those teeny quilts, or you can use those small pieces in translating quilts that you've already purchased a pattern for that calls for smaller design pieces, smaller segment pieces. So if you're using that, then you could probably get away with making boards 8x8 or 9x9 and have plenty of room. What I like to do is I have 2 boards with me when I'm working on a project. On one board, I lay out what my block looks like. So as I'm working, I can see it all the time, where a piece of fabric goes, how it lays. I can visualize like how things flip and all in my mind, and I leave that off to the side as a reference, and then I sew it up last so that I always have a reference block. Then on my other one, on my other design board, I lay out the piles of my fabric so I can carry the whole thing right over to the embroidery machine, and then when I'm done, I can lay those pieces out again when they're made, take this whole thing over to my sewing machine and sew my blocks together with our no quarter inch foot needed, because it has a special seam line on there that you follow for sewing your blocks together, and you get a perfect seam every time. So you're going to need some board cut to whatever size you want to make. This is 12 by 12. You're going to need, for the 12 by 12 or smaller, 4 1-inch pieces of Velcro. That's the brand name. Hook and loop tape is what I'm talking about. Like I said, I like to use the pre-sticky, but you're going to lose a needle. If you use the non-pre-sticky, you'll have to glue it, 4 pieces, the hard pieces, the loop part, to the board, and then the other part you'll just sew on. So you might want to use a dab of fabric glue just to hold it in place while you're sewing it. Either way, it's entirely up to you. Then you're going to need a piece of fabric. Now, if you don't want to use pretty fabric on the back side, you don't have to. You can use just plain white fabric or plain muslin, either way, and then do a pretty little print on your binding, just the way you see boards done in other ways. But remember, there's a second way that we're going to use this piece, and in that respect, you'd probably like to have that pretty fabric. So 1 square, whatever color you want, and then you're going to need some batting, and I have 2 samples here for you. So this batting right here is called Battleizer. It's by Hoop Sisters. They have made beautiful quilts in the hoop for a long time. A little bit different idea than what we do here at Build A Quilt, because you build everything up on the Battleizer. Battleizer is slightly thicker than your average batting. So if you use Battleizer, and I love this, like if I want just a 1 layer that's a little thicker normally for a quilt or a quilted project, I use Battleizer. I really like it. It's a nice product. If you use Battleizer, you're going to need 1 layer. That's all for your design board. If you want to use any other type of batting, 2 layers. Now, my favorite batting, and I know now they sell it in 40 by 40 and 60 by 60 lengths, but their regular pretty much is 19 inches by 3 yards, because it's meant to be used with their projects. And this is Kimberbell's project batting. The batting is beautiful. I wish they sold it like you can buy regular batting, because I would buy yards and yards of it, and I would probably never use anything else for my quilts. No, I'm not being sponsored by any of these name brands that I'm talking about today. I'm just telling you what I have come to enjoy and use over 55 years of quilting. So the Kimberbell project batting is truly one of my absolute all-time favorites. But even if you use the Kimberbell, use 2 layers of it, okay? I just think it gives you a nicer design board overall to have a little bit more thickness there, because sometimes batting over time likes to spread and kind of disintegrate a little bit. You're not going to find that with the Kimberbell project batting or with the Battleizer by Hoop Sisters. All right, those were my 2 choices there. So this one was made with the 2 layers of Kimberbell, And Kimberbell's project batting definitely has a smooth side and a rougher side. You want to put your two rough sides together. To put them together, just put a little bit of spray adhesive. Let me grab my can of Oda 505. You can use a 505, you can use a June Taylor, whatever fabric adhesive spray you might have in your room, go ahead and use it. But just spray it very lightly, not much at all, between your two layers, and put them basically rough sides together so that the outer side is this smooth side. This will hold your fabric on there with no problem at all. Then put on one, choose your side, put a little bit of the spray again, and then lay down your piece of fabric on top of it. I'll show you that more in a minute. So you are going to need a little adhesive spray. All right, now I want to talk to you about making your boards, cutting them. Please, whatever you do, don't cut with your good quilting rulers. Don't lay it down on here. Take your box cutter, and the box cutter I found works better than an X-Acto knife or any other kind of knife that I've used, and it's got that little security feature in it, so you're not going to get hurt, hopefully. Ask me how I know. I did this one day and did this, and yeah, there was a mess. So box cutter, and then I use, now this one's extra long, but you probably would need something around the size of the cut that you're going to make. This one's extra long. This is a metal ruler. This is like a construction ruler. Why in the world, Diana, do you have a construction ruler that is 48 inches long? Because I use it when I trim up my quilts. When I square up my quilts at the end, it's nice and long, it's firm, it's not going to move around, and I can get a really good edge on my quilts before I do my binding. That's why I have this. I want to get one that's like 18 inches, and that would be probably more appropriate. But something like this, or just a regular wooden ruler, also will work. But don't use your good quilting rulers, and the reason why is because when you use a box cutter and things like that, you don't know if you're not accidentally digging in and putting notches in the side of your good ruler, which could, in the end, when you're using your rotary cutter, end up making your cuts not as good as they should be, not as accurate as they should be. So don't use your acrylic rulers. Use a regular old wooden ruler, a yardstick. Get yourself a metal ruler. If by any chance you want to get your own 48-inch metal ruler, I just got this at Harbor Freight here in our town. And it works great for squaring up your quilts at the end before binding. All right, so what I did is I take and I measure out the size I want. So I had to put a line here for this side so I know where my 12 inches is. And then I'm going to place this big old ruler right on there. Excuse me, I'm going to put on my magnifying clip-ons. I can see these lines a little bit better. And I can line it up on that line, just like that. Then I'm going to take my box cutter and I'm going to put it right on the outside. Now I'm doing this on my regular cutting table, and it doesn't injure it at all because our cutting mats are self-healing and it works just fine. And I'm not digging in super hard. I just want to go through this artboard or your piece of cardboard. So I'm going to open this up, lay this down, and just drag it through, and you can hear it cutting all the way down. Now I'm going to move that big ruler out of the way, and let's see if it came. They usually don't come all the way apart. Usually this paper on the other side, that's how I know I'm not also hurting my mat, is because I don't get all the way through there. But once that's done, I can take my box cutter and come through here and recut down that line and get through the paper. And then if it's like that, instead of twisting, I try to pull. Now you see there's some little bitty notches here. That's not going to be a problem, but if you want, you can trim those if they're badly done, but typically they're not. Like, I haven't had to do anything special on mine. The box cutter gives me a nice smooth, here I can take those off, a nice smooth cut on it. And if there are a few little pieces, it's usually this inside stuff. Just pull straight out, it'll pop out and it'll be fine. So we'll set that piece over there. Now I have my 12-inch square that I need. I can set my box cutter aside so that I don't accidentally, again, hurt myself. Now, with that done, I can take the hook part. So this part, the rough part of my Velcro, I actually buy sets of little 1-inch pieces. Now, Velcro is the brand name, like I said. Here's the Velcro. Hook and loop tape is what we're talking about. There's, I think, there's 3 cards in here. Each one has 4 pieces on it, which is exactly what you need, 4 pieces for a board. So I peel off the hook side, and what I do with my ruler is I come in here a 1/4 inch from the top and a 1/4 inch from the inside. I put a dot there, and then I line up my corner of my Velcro there so that my Velcro is easily in the same place on all 4 corners. Okay, so, and then I just set that aside. I'm done with this piece now. Put that right over there. Now, let's talk about, again, the pad. Okay, so in this particular example, I am using a 12 by 12 piece of battleizer. Now, see, there are some wrinkly things here from folds and all. Sometimes what I do is I put it down onto my fabric, take my fabric over to my iron, and press it with the stabilizer underneath. I only press at the wool silk setting. I never press with cotton. I know that is something we've used in quilting for decades and decades. Cotton, or a cotton setting, that much heat is actually very bad for your fabric over time. It draws out moisture. Cotton comes from a plant fiber, obviously, and it will, over time, dry your fabric out earlier, and that's how you end up getting some odd little hole in the center. Eventually, those fibers just crumble apart, and it's typically because they've had too much heat over time. That's typically not the reason when it happens at a seam, but if it happens right in the middle of something, and that's not someplace where like a baby's been rubbing his hands or something like that, that's probably because there's been too much heat over time. I know there are quilters out there that swear by cotton. I did for years, okay? That's how I was taught too. But by learning a little bit about what actually happens to the fabric on those heat settings, I found that the wool silk setting is as hot as you need to be. You can get your pieces flat, you can get wrinkles out, and you don't have to worry about overheating that fabric, especially because we end up pressing more than once, and the more you apply that heat, you're going to end up, you know, getting those fabrics, those fibers more fragile over time. Okay, enough about that setting. So just to help get some of those wrinkles out, I would just put this on, take it to my pressing station, press this out if there's, because there are a few little wrinkles on this piece. I haven't pressed it yet, but there are a few little pieces, and then usually that helps get some of these. But if there's a little bit of wrinkling on here, which is from folding, it's not going to be a problem. I will tell you that when I made this one, there were more wrinkles than we see now, and they've kind of just loosened up over time. Okay, so once these are together and you've taken your spray and sprayed a little bit on here and laid your fabric down, smoothed it all out, you'll have a piece like this. Then you want to go to your sewing machine. You want to make sure that you have a neutral thread. I like to use a pearlized gray, 0184 from Isacord. Yes, I use that in my sewing machine. Or a light gray from Aurifil. If you want to use a cotton, that's Aurifil has less lint, so that's the brand I use, but any neutral thread you have will work. Then you want to take, if you're not good at eyeballing from corner to corner, take a ruler and take a very light pencil and make yourself a line, corner to corner in one direction, corner to corner in the other direction. And you're just going to sew a big old X. And I just eyeball it. If I start in one corner, I just go slow. And that's the hint to being accurate when you're sewing, is go slow. I know we like to put the pedal to the metal on our foot pedals, but that's when we get out of control, and that's when we lose our accuracy. So slow and steady, just like our little hair from the Tula Pink fabric, slow and steady, and you should be able to eyeball an X just like that. Okay, so once you have that done, then all you need to do is bind this square. You can hand bind it if you like. You can machine bind it. I just machine bound it. You're going to need about 3 2.5 by 18-inch strips to bind all the way around this. In fact, I think I actually used 4, and I had like most of my 4th strip left over because I always like to give myself extra when I bind in case I make a mistake. But you can hand bind, machine bind, whatever technique you want. And then your pad is done. Then, in order to make sure that the loop side of my hook and loop tape is going to match up with the hook side that I have on my board, what I do is I take these 4 pieces and I put them right onto these 4 pieces. So the sticky side is sticking out, and the pieces are stuck together, and the glue side is sticking outwards. Then I take my piece with my pretty side, my pretty fabric showing, and I lay it right down on top of those 4 squares and give my 4 corners a little bit of a press. Not hard, just a little bit to make that glue attach to the fabric. Then I slowly, because I haven't sewn them yet, peel those 4 corners off. And then I go to my machine, and all I do is I sew down one direction, up one side, and down the other direction. So 3 little lines. It doesn't take away from this being able to hold on to the hook part of the hook and loop tape. It works just fine. And then I have, whenever I want to, and I make several. So like, I would make up like a half a dozen of each size of the mat. I only technically need 2 of each size in the board. You could make more if you wanted, but I only really need 4 of these pieces, or 2 of those pieces, but I make like 4 or 6 of these because after time, when we get lots of strings on here and accidentally spill, who hasn't spilled a little coffee on something before, right? Or tea, or a little bit of juice, or whatever you're drinking on here. Especially if you're like me and sometimes you can't sleep late at night, you get up, you do a little bit of sewing for a little bit of quilting, and then you're able to nod back off. That's when I typically spill. So, anyway, these get a little dirty. This can be thrown in a cold wash, cold dry, or hang to dry. I like to hang mine to dry. They dry in a day. If I just hang them in the laundry room, they're dry by the next day. But I throw them in a cold, gentle wash cycle, and that's all I do. Now, I know I'm going to get a question from some of my Build A Quilt friends. Could I make a beautiful 12-inch block and pieced block and put it on here? Yes, of course you can. You could use plain fabric, just a nice piece of fabric. If you're going to use just a piece of fabric, you're going to need a fat quarter for this. If you're going to make the 12 by 12 size, you'll need a fat quarter for this, less, but just to make sure you can center up any kind of medallion or print, a fat quarter for this, and then you're going to need like half of a fat quarter for your binding. So that's all the fabric that you need. So yes, you can, if you want to piece a beautiful square and use that as the back, that's okay too. Just remember, you're not seeing it when you're using it, but you are gonna see it when you use it the second way. And that's what we are too now. That's how easy it is to make these design boards. And what I do is I have these IKEA boards, and I have these, grab one, these IKEA clips that clip onto those boards. So over here at the sewing station, I just have these on there, and I have them hanging up, and that way I can just grab one when I need one. If some are in the laundry, then I just grab whatever's the next one, or if I feel like using a Tula print one day, or this was, you can tell that I've wallpapered this back wall in the studio with with a Kimberbell print with one of her wide back fabrics. It's been up here now, oh gosh, at least 3 or 4 years now, and it's turned out to last, works beautifully. But I had some offcuts left over when I did that. So to use them, that's what this one is going to be, is a Kimberbell print. Maybe you're a Lori Holt fan or a Cuff Fassett fan, or, oh golly, there's so many of them. And I love so many different designers. It's hard to think of all of them. But you can use whatever you want. The stuff that you trim off the bottom of your quilts when you're done, like that extra overage, if you're making smaller boards, you might have plenty to do some boards from that as well. So before you go digging into your fabrics, your yardage or your fat quarters and things like that, then look and see if you've got offcuts that will work. If you're someone like me who loves layer cakes, but you never know what to do with them, they're 10 by 10, and I could get away with making some 10 by 10 boards. So if you have some leftover, pardon me, if you have some leftover layer cake pieces, use that. Make your boards 10 by 10, especially if you're going to be using the smaller mini pieces. Yeah, make some 10 by 10 boards and use some of your leftover layer cake pieces. You don't have to dig into your good fabric unless you want to. And sometimes you want to. This was actually a leftover piece, and it just so happened that I was able to pretty well get it balanced within that square. Alrighty, now here comes that second way to use this that I've been telling you about. So here I have it. I'm going to lay this piece just flat on my thing. This does not need the board. Let's say that you are going to a class. You're going to teach a class, or you're going to go to a friend's house and teach them how to use the Build A Quilt system so that they can start doing their own patchwork. They're really excited and they want to learn, and you're going to go help them. What I'm doing is I'm taking my fabrics that I need and I'm laying them out, as you can see, on my mat. I can get all of those in there just like that. Now, if I took that, obviously all these top pieces would go flying off, right? But look what happens. If I gently, and I'm not rolling it tight, just loosely, roll it up like this and take 3 little snap bands. And they're not tight either, they're just on there loosely. So a snap band is one of those things. I'm always trying to find ways to use them because somehow I've ended up collecting a bunch of them through my quilting and sewing. Now, I throw that in my bag. That's all the fabric that I need for what I need to take with me. Can you imagine just having that's the only piece you need, and not having piles and piles of fabric that you have to cut? Because with Build A Quilt, if you pre-cut your fabric pieces and load your USB stick with the patterns, the segment pieces that you're going to need for your project, you need a USB and this and your stabilizer and your machine and your thread, your piecing thread, and you're ready to go. And then this way, just throw it in there and you're ready to go. You're off to a class, you're off to a friend's house, you're off to do a demonstration at your local guild, whatever you want. And when you do this, you get to see the pretty fabric. Now, you can't see my full bunny, but you can see that that's a pretty print. And if you know Tula Pink, you know that that's a pretty Tula Pink fabric. So that's how I use my design boards 2 ways. If you have questions or comments, please leave them below in the comment area. I'd love to hear from you. I'd be happy to answer any of those questions. If you're interested in more videos like this or learning more about the Build A Quilt system, go ahead and click that join button on the front of the page that you're on, or on the front of the Build A Quilt channel page, and take a look at the little video there on how to become a Build A Quilt channel member and see how you can get extra access and extra videos and things from us here at Build A Quilt and help support our channel. We would truly appreciate it. Also, we truly appreciate it if you're new, just to subscribe, like, and share our videos. That's how this group has grown to be the size it is, which is a little overwhelming sometimes, but I am fortunate to be able to do this for you all, and each and every one of you mean the world to me. So until next time, everybody, remember, quilters, we are artists in our own way. Fabric is our medium, and we make the world a more beautiful place. So go out today and quilt life beautiful. Bye for now.